Minwei Chi Nan. Chapter 21. First Pot of Gold Manual Noodle Maker, 1. Uncle is flattering me. Qin Mian took a look at the paddy in the field and praised, Uncle is worthy of being a good farmer. Seeing that the ears of the paddy are full, there must be a good harvest this year. In fact, it's a left-handed compliment. This paddy was much worse than what he'd seen in previous life. Ha ha ha, the village chief burst out laughing, knowing that Qin Mian was just picking his words, but it sounded good that it put people at ease. Nah, your field's also good. Qin Mian made modest remarks and didn't talk to the village chief anymore. Exchanging pleasantries is not like a business transaction, but it was important in order to maintain good interpersonal communication. It would seem hypocritical if one spoke too exaggeratedly. LIAN ate the chopped onion meat pancakes, and only when he finished did he asked, "Have you eaten?" Qin Mian replied, "No yet. I'll go back now and bring you your lunch at noon. Bring it to the grain sunning ground." LIAN caught sight of Lei Xiangren walking his way in big strides, and he stuffed the basket into Qin Mian's arms. "Go back now." Qin Mian also saw Lei Xiangren. He took the basket and left. He didn't like Lei Xiangren very much, and if he could avoid contact with him, he would. LIAN was Lei Xiangren's eldest brother, so he would have to leave dealing with him to LIAN. After a few steps, he turned his head and smiled sympathetically at LIAN. LIAN was baffled, but he raised his chin slightly. Qin Mian guessed that LIAN was urging him to go quickly. Smiling, he quickened his pace and went home leisurely. The village chief took in the whole scene of the situation here and shook his head secretly. He ate up the chopped onion meat pancake in 2 to 3 bites, and he continued to harvest his paddy. "Dagur, father told me to ask you to harvest our paddy. My paddy is still not completely collected. When you have finished harvesting this field, go there." "No, I still have to thresh the grain later." Qin Mian had gone far, but he could still faintly heard Lei Xiangren's indubitable tone and LIAN's indifferent response. He laughed silently and praised LIAN in his heart, "Good." When he got home, he filled his stomach and washed their clothes first. Then he found that there was a bamboo pole between the 2 trees in front of the house. The 2 ends of the bamboo pole were fixed on the branch of the trees, which was as tall as a person and tightly bound with cloth strips. This must be the clothesline made by LIAN. A smile involuntarily emerged from the corners of Qin Mian's lips. After hanging the clothes, he went back to the house to start his first pot of gold plan. /Note, from My First Pot of Gold, an American business handbook for Chinese immigrants written by consultant Karina Wang. It alludes to starting a business to seek wealth. There were 2 main things that he was good at in the previous life. One was farming, the other was being a gourmet. In this backward era, planting food in the field was toilsome, and it's difficult to make much money from it. He could only start with his knowledge as a gourmet. Yesterday, while they were in the town, he didn't manage to stroll around much since they were pressed for time, but he discovered a first business opportunity: manual noodle maker. He had calculated that there were more than 20 noodle shops in the town, and their noodles were all made in this way. First, the flour was mixed well. Then they would roll the dough into thin sheets with a rolling pin and then cut the noodles into strips with skilled knife work. This was not only tiring but also toilsome. He believed that if he made the manual noodle maker, it would sell well. Qin Mian found the paper left over from yesterday's window pasting, took out a pencil from the space and drew all the parts of the manual noodle maker, including the container for the dough, the handle, and the templates with several small holes on it. The principle of manual noodle maker was also simple, as it was mainly by extrusion and somewhat similar to air pump. Place the dough in the fuselage, hold the handle and press it down, then the dough would be extruded from several holes at the bottom and became strips of noodles. If one wanted to eat thin noodles, just used the base template with smaller holes, and for flat noodle, used the base template with larger holes. It was very convenient. After he was done drawing and double-checking it, Qin Mian put away the blueprint. Then he took out the pieces of cloth he bought yesterday, found the manual sewing machine from the magical space and sewed several pairs of socks. Then, he did a fitting and felt that it was a little loose. He sewed 2 belts at the socks opening, which could be tied like leggings to prevent it from slipping down. The socks were ugly in appearance but they were finely stitched. Even if LIAN noticed this detail, he would only think that Mian was good at needlework and would not think that he had a cheat. He washed the several pairs of socks and hung them on the bamboo pole outside. Looking at the position of the sun, it was almost noon. Mian picked some vegetables directly from the magical space and prepared lunch. He made sautéed shredded pork with green pepper using the remaining lean meat from yesterday, chive omelette, and cold eggplant salad. LIAN had a large appetite, so he directly filled a big soup bowl with the cooked rice. He also put half of the 3 dishes into the bowl, covered it with a plate and put them in the basket. Just like earlier, he filled a water jar with cold boiled water. The vegetables in the magical space tasted delicious. Mian wiped out the rest of the dishes, burped 2 times before he picked up the basket to bring lunch over to LIAN. The grains NING ground was where he and LIAN roasted corn before. It was a covered area of about 1.5 mu and was divided into 8 squares of similar sizes. When Mian arrived, the villagers wearing straw hats were in full swing, busying under the big sun. Some of them were speedily spreading out the newly picked paddy crops, preparing to thresh them. The quick farmers were already driving the oxen to pull the stone roller to crush it, raising the whip and making loud yells from time to time, and some villagers put the threshed grains into sacks because there were others waiting to use the grains NING ground. Below the haystack beside the grains NING ground, 3 sweaty men sitting in the shade while gobbling their food and talking loudly. There were more than 20 people on the grains NING ground. Somehow, Mian saw LIAN standing alone in one corner of the grains NING ground, bending over to spread out their paddy crops. End chapter. Minwei Chi Nan. Chapter 22. 600 jin of paddy. Beside LIAN, there were bundles of paddy tied by a rope made of straw. He untied the rope and spread the paddy on the ground. The sweat on his cheek rolled down one by one and disappeared onto the paddy. His bare and sturdy arms were shining under the scorching sun. Standing not far away was a few idle women chatting away with baskets hanging on their arms, about to send food to their own men. There were another 4 to 5 farmers gathered for meal and was talking loudly. Lao Lu, your family only harvested paddy in the field south of the village this morning, right? That field is less than 7 fen and yet I saw you pulled 7 or 8 carts to the grains NING ground in the morning. Such good harvest ah! We are fellow villagers. If you have any secret method of farming, you must have kept it to yourself. The speaker's face looked envious. Note, a fen is about 61.44 square meters. Another man was annoyed by what he said. The man sneered and said, who within a few miles of the village doesn't know that Sangur likes to hang around in other people's fields when you don't have anything to do? If I really have a secret method, how can I hide it from you? Note, Sangur meant third brother. Several others laughed heartily at the words and didn't cut in, taking pleasure to watch them fight. The previous speaker laughed hollowly, just what are you saying? Are you forbidding people now from roaming around casually? Everyone laughed even louder. They all knew what this Sangur was thinking. Mian glanced at them but didn't see anyone he knew and went directly to LIAN's side. Tie Gurgur, eat first. LIAN followed after him to the short willow tree beside the grains NING ground and took the basket in his hand. Mian liked to be clean. He couldn't stand the sweat on the man's face and took out the water jar in the basket. I'll pour the water so you can wash your face. LIAN nodded and took off the new face washcloth hanging on his neck to soak it with cold water. He wiped his face, neck, and hands and suddenly felt much refreshed. LIAN sat on a bundle of paddy as he uncovered the lid and saw the dishes in the bowl. His black pupils were dyed with some faint warmth. Have you eaten? Yes. Qin Mian sat down beside him and looked around casually. The grain sunning ground was located at the edge of the village. It was an open space and the trees around were not dense that one could see the scenery in all directions. In the field, people were busy transporting the harvested paddy to the grain sunning ground. Some people used oxen to pull the cart, others used donkeys, more people relied on their shoulders to carry using a sturdy shoulder pole hanging a bundle at each end and the heavy paddy tottering on their shoulders along the pace. Although tired, the farmers still wore satisfied smiles on their faces. This year's harvest was slightly better than that of the previous years. Although they had to pay a lot of land taxes, there were still some left for them and their families also could solidly eat a few meals of white rice. Qin Mian turned his head to ask Lei Tie, "We don't have beast of burden. Do we need to borrow from others?" Lei Tie took a bite of the chive omelette and as he spoke, his breath came with the strong aroma of the food. "There are too many monks and too little gruel. If there's nothing that can be borrowed, I'll pull the stone roller myself." Qin Mian was surprised and opened his mouth but he didn't know what to say. Pulling by manpower? His eyes drifted to an idle stone roller beside the grain sunning ground. This thing weighed at least 400 to 500 jin. Even if he could pull it, it would be very tiring, right? At this time, he felt that their family was poor, not owning a house or a cart. Although this was the ancient era, the cart was also divided into 3-6-9 grades. Donkey cart was equivalent to modern three-wheeled vehicle, ox cart was equivalent to the modern salon car and horse carriage was equivalent to modern BMW level. Qin Mian's goal in this life was to buy a cart. Never mind buying a BMW, having a three-wheeled vehicle was good enough. With a large bowl in his hand, Zhang Dashuan came over with big strides while eating a big mouthful of his meal. He was accompanied by a dark-faced young man in his early 20s with a handsome facial feature. He was tall and had a thin figure. He was carrying a big black porcelain bowl in his hand as he pushed food into his mouth and made a loud chewing sound. "Tai Sui, what tasty food are you eating?" "Zhang Xiang." Qin Mian got up to greet him. Zhang Dashuan introduced the young man beside him to Qin Mian, "This is my neighbor, Wu Di." "Greetings, Lei Ji." Wu Di had a smile on his face and his eyes were very lively when he looked at Lei Tie's bowl. "Tai Xiang, what kind of food does Lei Ji make for you? I can smell it all the way there." Several women in the field saw this and whispered amongst themselves. "Are Zhang Dashuan and Wu Di stupid? What kind of people are Lei Tie and Qin Mian?" They actually went over to join them. The woman who was talking was glared at by her husband. "Why do you have to care about other people's family?" Lei Tie moved the bowl to Zhang Dashuan's direction. "My wife made sautéed shredded pork with green pepper, chive omelette, and cold eggplant salad." He ate in refined manner. Currently, there were still many dishes in the bowl. Qin Mian looked into the bowl of Zhang Dashuan and Wu Di quietly. There were 2 salted eggs in Zhang Dashuan's bowl while Wu Di's bowl was full of vegetables but he could see that there was much oil in it. Zhang Dashuan unceremoniously took some of shredded pork with green pepper from Lei Tie's bowl and upon seeing the greedy but embarrassed expression of Wu Di, he laughed. He squatted down on the side. They were all families of peasant, who didn't pay much attention about chewing with mouth closed and silently laying to rest. "Tai Sui, how are you going to thresh your paddy?" While he spoke, he glanced at Wu Di either by design or accident. Wu Di looked at the spread-out paddy. His eyes immediately lit up and he hurriedly opened his mouth before Lei Tie answered, "Tai Xiang, my family only harvested less than half of the paddy in our field. After this, we will be done with threshing. In the afternoon, we will continue to harvest. You can use our donkey." For fear that Lei Tie would be silly enough to refuse, Qin Mian took the bowl out of his hand and brought it in front of Wu Di. "Many thanks. If you don't dislike it, try some of this. I like this a lot. How fragrant." "Thank you Tai Xiang, thank you Lei Ji." Wu Di grinned and stretched out his chopsticks but took care not to take too much. He took a bit of shredded pork with green pepper and a small piece of chive omelette. LIAN still kept the posture of holding the bowl with his left hand. Looking at Qin Mian, his gaze both carried helplessness and bereavement. Zhang Dashuan saw it clearly and quickly took back his gaze, bowing his head to eat. Eat. Qin Mian returned the bowl to LIAN, patted him on the shoulder as a token of comfort and said generously, "If you like it, I can cook these 3 dishes for dinner again." LIAN nodded, mixed the remaining dishes with the cooked rice and began to eat again. Qin Mian was kind to the young man. "Wu Di, thank you so much for today. After the busy season passed, Tie Gerger and I will invite you to dinner." Wu Di waved his hand. "It's nothing. My donkey is idle anyways. Just agree on this." Qin Mian insisted. Wu Di then no longer refused and happily nodded. "Then, deference is no substitute for obedience. I've heard from Zhangxiang that Lei Ji's cooking is really good. I've the luck to get something nice to eat. Then I'll have to bother Zhangxiang to accompany us then," Qin Mian said to Zhang Dashuan. He didn't fail to see Zhang Dashuan's efforts in trying to help them. Zhang Dashuan and LIAN had a good relationship. It would be too hypocritical to be too polite, and so he laughingly said, "Of course, that's fine." After finishing lunch, Zhang Dashuan and Wu Di left in a hurry as they would have to continue to be busy in the afternoon. LIAN ate all the remaining food and drank half the water. "Go back. It's quite hot." Qin Mian didn't get up at once but asked, "When will you finish the work here?" LIAN answered, 2 shishan at most. Note, 1 shishan is about 2 hours. Qin Mian asked tentatively, "What about your parents' side?" LIAN said in a low voice, "We take care of ourselves first." Qin Mian nodded with great satisfaction in his heart. "I'll go back and tidy up the house first. Then I'll come over to help." "No need." LIAN looked at the son as he refused. Qin Mian didn't say anything verbally as he had his own plans. He went home to wash the dishes and locked the door. Then he made a straw hat out of bamboo strips, took the basket with him as well and went to the grain sunning ground. He didn't want to be in the sun either, but since he and LIAN were a family for the time being, he had to take some responsibility for this family. Otherwise, he wasn't living in a reasonable way. When Wu Di's family was done with the donkey, LIAN led the donkey over and took the stone roller to begin threshing the paddy. Qin Mian turned the paddy over with a pitchfork and the process continued on. After repeating the process for almost 2 hours, LIAN stopped and took over the pitchfork in Qin Mian's hand. He picked up the stalk and saw to it that the grains had basically fallen off. He nodded to Qin Mian and led the donkey away. After threshing, the paddy stalks became rice straws, which could be used as burning material or fodder. Qin Mian picked up all the straws with the pitchfork and piled them aside. When he picked them up, he had to shake them a few times to make sure that all the grains in the stalks were all shaken off. Afterwards, he swept them with a bamboo broom to form a pile. When LIAN came back, he used a wooden shovel to winnow. The wind blew in waves, the dust and the chaff in the grains were blown away along with the wind, leaving only clean grains. Their 1 mu of paddy field eventually harvested 600 jin of paddy, filled in 5 big sacks. After sunning, it's about 400 jin, which was a low yield in modern society, but it's not bad for this era. LIAN easily picked up a sack onto his shoulder and carried the grain home in 5 trips. The straws were all tied up and transported back home the same way. On the last trip, they picked some vegetables in the Lei family's vegetable garden. LIAN brought clean clothes to bathe in the river, but Qin Mian bathed in hot water at home before he started to prepare dinner. The dishes for dinner were the same as they had at noon, but there was no lean meat left. Thus, the sautéed shredded pork with green pepper turned into sautéed streaky pork with green pepper. LIAN ate a lot, as if he wanted to make up for what he didn't manage to eat at noon. The green pepper was very spicy, but the spiciness lessened with the cooked rice. Both of them were satisfied. After the dinner, the sun would set. I have something to discuss with you. Mian said as he cleared away the dishes. What is it? LIAN looked at the socks hanging on the bamboo pole outside the house. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 23. First pot of gold manual noodle maker, 2. Mian took the dirty dishes into the kitchen. Coming out, he wiped his hands, took out the blueprint and handed it over to LIAN. This is my drawing of a manual noodle maker. A manual noodle maker? LIAN looked at the paper doubtfully. First of all, he felt that the strokes were very delicate, that he didn't know what was used to draw it. For the moment, he put his doubts in his heart and looked at the contents of the drawing. This little wife of his had many doubtful points, just like this one. The drawing was clear, concise, and easy to understand. Mian sat down beside LIAN and explained, "Didn't we go to town yesterday? I found out that most of the noodles in the noodle shops in town are freshly made as they were ordered, which is very time-consuming. This manual noodle maker can make noodles quickly and store noodles for a long time after they are air-dried. I have 2 ideas. Either sell this blueprint to a craftsman, or find a craftsman to make noodle makers and sell them to taverns and noodle shops. It can be sold for a good price." LIAN stared at him for a moment and he began to speak but then hesitated. This little wife of his seemed to be in a hurry to make money. His eyes went back to the drawing, a smear of deep pondering streaked across his eyes. "If it's as you said, why don't you keep it and run your own noodle shop?" He didn't expect that this ancient man had such quick thinking. Mian looked at him approvingly. "I did think of that, too. But we are common people without a backer. Once such a good thing is fancied by powerful and influential people, I'm afraid it will cause us trouble." He also had a lot of money-making ideas and not particularly concerned about the noodle maker. At present, the most important thing was to earn enough money to build tile-roofed house with the fastest speed. He didn't want to live in a thatched cottage. LIAN had a change of heart and changed his opinion. "The price can't be low." "Of course." Mian nodded affirmatively. "Isn't this a new technology? I realized that. If I sell the blueprint, I will sell it for 50 silver tael. If I sell the noodle maker, I will sell 1 noodle maker for 2 silver tael. How is it?" LIAN said, 5 tael. Mian couldn't help laughing. He didn't expect that LIAN was also a man who loved to earn money. When he thought about it carefully, 5 silver tael was equivalent to 5,000 yuan in modern times. It shouldn't be too expensive for those noodle shops. He frowned with some embarrassment. No matter who it is sold to, it's better to make a finished product. But if we find a craftsman to do it, won't they disclose the content of the drawing? LIAN said in a low voice, "I'll do it." Mian looked surprised. "You will do it?" LIAN nodded. "I'm going to the mountain tomorrow to chop wood." Mian was curious about what had LIAN gone through in those past 10 years. What did he actually experienced? Unlike the country folks, LIAN could hunt, read, and worked as a carpenter. LIAN stood up. "Go to sleep." "Wait." Mian stopped him and said, "Since I have come up with an idea to make money for our family, shouldn't you wash the dishes from now on? This family belongs to both of us. I have done my share, you should also do your share." LIAN was taken aback and without saying a word, he turned to the kitchen. "Ah, what good man!" Mian gave his back a thumbs up and followed him in. "There is hot water in the wok. Use the hot water, otherwise it won't be washed clean. After washing, rinse 3 times. LIAN didn't make a sound, but did as he was told. Rest assured, Mian took the mouthwash cup and face cloth to wash up. Before he entered the house, he conveniently collected the clothes on the clothes drying pole. After a day drying under the sun, there was a smell of sunshine on the clothes. He folded the clothes and placed them separately. 8 pairs of socks were also placed separately, 4 pairs for each person. After putting things in order, he climbed onto bed and beat out a yawn. After a while, LIAN came in. I made you 4 pairs of socks. They're in the trunk. NN. Mian raised his eyebrows. No thank you. He turned over to the wall and was ready to sleep. I'll go up the mountain with you tomorrow. You need to go to grain sunning, someone has to keep watch. Don't worry, I have a way. Mian composedly said. LIAN didn't speak. Mian adjusted his sleeping posture and closed his eyes. In the middle of the night, Mian dreamed of looking for a toilet and he woke up with a start. His underbelly was distended. When he was in school, he had a habit of going to the toilet before he took an exam, took a bus or train or went to bed. Otherwise, his mind would be uneasy. He drank too much water in the afternoon and forgot to go to the toilet before he went to bed. Now he was woken up by the urge to pee. The room was pitch black. He groped about in the dark as he got up and his hands pressed on a warm and sturdy thing. There was a whiff of heat in his ear, accompanied by a hoarse voice, had nightmare. Mian then found out that he was holding LIAN's waist and what he pressed on was LIAN's stomach. He quickly withdrawn his hand as his heart beat faster and got tongue-tied. No. That is, I want to go to the lavatory. Don't move. His shoulder was pressed down before he heard a rustling sound. Then he heard a light zap and a spark scuttled in the dark. After another sound, the oil lamp was lit by LIAN. Mian jumped out of bed, put on his shoes and rushed out of the room. LIAN heard the door bolt slid away quickly, the corner of his lips drew up into an obvious arc but disappeared quickly and then he closed his eyes. Mian didn't go to the latrine behind the house but rushed to the edge of the bamboo forest, quickly drained his bladder and then went back to the house at ease. He got on the bed first, then blew out the oil lamp and deliberately lay down next to the edge of the bed. After falling asleep, he sensed a heat source beside him. He went over it unconsciously and was held by the similarly sound asleep man, who habitually stretched out his arms without realizing it. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 24. Go up the mountain to cut down trees. Cock-a-doodle-doo. In the early morning, the roosters in the village were crowing one after another. Mian yawned and opened his bleary eyes. What caught his eyes was him hugging a man's waist and there were shock and confusion in his eyes. He raised his head abruptly and came into contact with a pair of bright and serene eyes. Did I came over to you myself? Mian asked. LIAN nodded. When the rooster first crowed, he was ready to get up but he was held tightly. Really? LIAN nodded again. Do you mind? Mian narrowed his eyes. LIAN was calm as he shook his head slightly. Mian calmly moved his arms away and sat up. That's fine then. He had no parents since he was a child, so he felt insecure and liked to curl up and hold something when he went to sleep. He thought that sleeping with a stranger would get rid of the problem but habits and instinct prevailed. He opened the trunk to get socks, threw a pair of large ones to LIAN and put on the new socks and shoes. After washing his face, he was fully clear-headed. LIAN felt the socks and put them on. The two had a clear division of labor. Mian lit a fire and prepared breakfast. LIAN took a broom and cleaned up the open space at the entrance. He carried out several sacks of rice grain and spread them on the ground, golden bright and dazzling. The freshness of the rice grain subsequently overflowed and the air in the morning smelled better. Breakfast was a few savory vegetable pancakes and plain congee. Are there any honest and obedient children in the village? Mian took a bite of the vegetable pancake and looked at the rice grain on the ground. The golden color was dazzling under the sunlight. LIAN understood, are we letting them look after the rice grain? Those children can't do any heavy work at home but it's still possible for them to look after the rice grain. Find an obedient child to help and buy him some snacks from the town. Mian tasted the congee and after determining it was not that hot, he took a big sip. LIAN said, we'll go to the grain sunning ground later. After breakfast, they locked the door and went out. Lai carried a saw, a rope, and his bow set. Mian carried a basket on his back. He could perhaps dig some wild vegetables or pick some wild fruits on the mountain. The grain sunning ground was still so bustling. The adults were busy husking the rice grain while the children were running around the grain sunning ground. Some were playing hide and seek, giggling behind the haystacks, while the more mischievous children were having somersault competition on the spread rice grain, letting out crisp big laughter from time to time. Even if they were sweating, they didn't feel hot. Mian noticed a 7 or 8 years old boy looking dignified and strong, sitting alone in the corner holding his knees and seemed bored. So, he beckoned the boy over. The boy came running over in puzzlement, blinked, and looked at him with distrust. Mian gave him a gentle smile. "What's your name?" "Xiaohu." There were familiar villagers nearby, so Xiaohu was not shy at all. He answered honestly. Mian asked again, "Xiaohu, do you want to eat snack?" The boy nodded with a little embarrassment, but at the thought of delicious snacks, his eyes showed craving. "We live in the old house behind the village. As long as you do us a favor, we'll give you a packet of snacks," Mian said. Lai quietly watched Mian abduct the child. Xiaohu's eyes brightened, but he was a little suspicious. "Really? Of course it is true," Mian said patiently. "We are going to cut down trees on the mountain. We want to find someone to help us look at our rice grain in the meanwhile. If you help us out, I'll buy you a packet of snacks from the town. Are your father and your mother here? You can ask them for permission." "Wait a bit." Xiaohu ran to a dark-faced man in his 30s and looked back, as if he was afraid that Mian and Lai would be gone. The man looked their way and nodded to Xiaohu. Xiaohu immediately showed a happy smile and like a small cannon shot, he rushed over. "My father gave his permission." Mian nodded to the man and took Xiaohu away. He left Xiaohu at the door of his house and brought a chair out for him, telling him not to let birds and chickens eat the rice grain. Xiaohu sat on the chair, shook his small legs and waved his hand like a little adult. "Don't worry. I will do what I promise you." Mian laughed in spite of himself and left with Lai towards the back of the mountain. This mountain was called Mount Cloud Summit and was the highest mountain nearby. It's tall and steep, seeming to be able to reach the sky. Hence it's called Mount Cloud Summit. The mountain was lush with trees and wild animals frequently roamed about that the villagers dared not come here, only the brave hunters dared to go deeper. As soon as they entered the forest, the dense leaves blocked the sun, the light was dim and the temperature was a few degrees lower that Mian shivered before he adapted to it. The path in the mountain was not easy to walk as it was overgrown with weeds and in some places, there was no sunlight all year round. There were also morning dew and autumn fog permeated the ground, making the soil wet and slippery. Lai had experienced and purposely chose uneven area to set foot to walk safely and securely. With him leading the way, Mian followed his footprints and looked around in the hope of finding some treasures. To him, the mountain was a treasure trove waiting for his exploration. The birds in the forest woke up too with the twittering came from nowhere, the sound was particularly clear and lyrical in the morning forest. Lai walked slowly and looked back from time to time. Lai, what tree are you going to cut down? Mian himself was a cheerful person. He looked for a topic to talk about when there was none. Lai said, "Why don't you call me Tiger?" Mian muttered, "I was 3 years older than you in my last life." But of course he couldn't say that out loud. Because Mian didn't pay attention for a while that he stepped on a piece of grass with morning dew on it. His feet slipped and his whole person leaned backward. Lai quickly grabbed his hand, pulled him back into his bosom and put another arm around his waist. Mian's face hit Lai on the chest. After standing steadily, he looked back at the steep slope and the big tree several steps away. He got a little scared. He had a small body and he would have been seriously injured if he fell. Lei Tie let go of him, took his hand naturally and went on. Qin Mian couldn't pull out his hand, so he was forced to follow Lei Tie. Feeling a heat on his hand, he kept repeating in his heart, I am a child, I am a child. By the way, you haven't answered what tree are you going to cut down? As far as I know, not all wood is suitable for ware making. He automatically ignored the question that Lei Tie asked before. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 25. First Pot of Gold Manual Noodle Maker, 3. Lei Tie didn't bother about his intention and replied, Chinese fur. It is fairly pliable, has straight vein lines, easy to handle and have corrosion resistance. Qin Mian thought for a moment. Make two, one for the sample and the other for our own use. NN. Qin Mian was about to speak when he was pulled. Be careful where you step. He looked down and saw that there were some hedgehog-like fruits scattered on the ground and several brown fruits were wrapped in the prickly shell. His eyes brightened. This is, Lei Tie explained, prickly fruit. When walking into the mountains, pay attention above your head. Prickly fruit. This is obviously chestnut. Qin Mian was so excited that he almost blurted out. It's called prickly fruit. He asked tentatively, can it be eaten? Lei Tie looked at his eyes with some complexity. After a moment's silence, he said, can't eat these. There are crabapple trees ahead. Qin Mian opened his mouth with some helplessness in his eyes. Lei Tie thought he was fond of good food. He conveniently snapped 2 twigs, squatted down and picked up the prickly fruit to look at it carefully for a long time. He was very sure that it was chestnut. He took his hand out of Lei Tie's hand and quickly picked up the chestnuts into the basket. Come and help. This is a good thing. It can't be eaten. Lei Tie frowned with a little distress surging up in his chest. It can be eaten, trust me. Qin Mian looked up at him with firm eyes. Li Tai pulled him, pick them up when we go back. Right. Qin Mian responded, dumped out the prickly fruits in the basket and piled them at the side. His hand was back in Lei Tie's. Probably because this was the second time that he was not as uncomfortable as before. 2 pheasants passed through the dense grass in front of them. The pheasants noticed them and wanted to sneak away. Lei Tie loosened Qin Mian's hand and shot 2 arrows at the same time. The 2 pheasants died without even having a chance to flap their wings. Qin Mian gave a thumbs up to Lei Tie and ran over to pick up the pheasants. They found a fir tree as thick as a thigh. Lei Tie made Qin Mian step back and cut it with a saw. While waiting, Qin Mian was bored and wandered around. Wife, don't go too far. Without turning back, Lei Tie knew what he was doing. I know. Qin Mian luckily found a few hawthorn trees with bright red hawthorn fruits hanging on them. He picked the big ones and soon filled less than half of the basket. Lei Tie found a time to glance at him and was puzzled by the excited expression of his shining eyes, but he didn't ask and diligently sawed the tree. After the fir tree was cut down, he sawed off a half-person high section from the top and carried it on his shoulder easily. Let's go to pick apples. Lei Tie familiarly took Qin Mian to the apple tree. The apple tree was very thick, but only 1 person tall. The apple on the branch was only slightly bigger than a tennis ball, but the pink color looked very enticing. Qin Mian picked one and wiped it on his clothes before he took a bite. He was pleasantly surprised. This fruit is not big, but it tastes good. It's sour and sweet. Lei Tie put down the fir wood and chose big ones to pick. After picking more than 20 of them, Qin Mian stopped. If he picked too many, his back would not be able to bear it. When they returned to the chestnut area, Qin Mian knocked off the chestnut shell, picked up a lot of chestnuts and straightly filled the basket with chestnuts. It was hard for his shoulders to bear it, but he was reluctant to throw out some of them. Lei Tie put the basket on his back without saying anything. Qin Mian rubbed his nose. Should we throw some out? No need. Let's go. Qin Mian obediently kept up with Lei Tie, admiringly looking at his big and strong back. When could he grow up like this? When they got home, Xiao Hu was sitting obediently under the shade of the tree with a long stick next to him, which was unknown where he got from. Uncle Lai. Qin Gur. Coughed Qin Mian, choked by his own saliva. Why did it sound like an endearment? Lei Tie gruffly said, call him Uncle Qin. Oh. Xiao Hu nodded in assent. Qin Mian took 2 apples and handed them to him. We won't go to town until later. You go to the grain sunning ground to play first. We will call you when we leave and then you can help us look after the rice grain again. All right. Xiao Hu smiled with crescent eyes. He took the 2 apples and ran away. Lei Tie took out all kinds of tools as he sat at the entrance and made the noodle maker according to the drawing. Qin Mian took out all the things in the basket and put them under the shade. He cleaned the 2 pheasants and prepared some dough for use. Then he washed 2 apples and sat next to Lei Tie to watch and guide him. Upon seeing Lei Tie skillfully peeled the fir wood unlike a novice, he got more confidence in this noodle maker of them. The holes in the bottom plate were the most difficult to do and needed to be chiseled one by one. Lei Tie was very patient, neither in a hurry or impatient. Chisel a notch here on the body, connect it with the base plate, it can be removed with a twist on the left and right. Right. Polish here. The slide bar here should be straight to ensure that the handle can apply vertical force. In less than an hour, the first noodle maker was finally produced. Qin Mian stroked the smooth body and sung praises, this is the first noodle maker in the world. We will keep it for our own use. Lei Tie nodded and was very satisfied with his craftsmanship. Let's try it. Qin Mian ran into the kitchen excitedly. First, he cleaned the noodle maker inside and outside with water. Then he propped up the noodle maker with a triangle trestle, put it in a basin, and then put the dough into the body. Lei Tie held the handle and pressed it down hard. The long and thin noodles suddenly extruded from the hole below and fell into the basin. Qin Mian laughed and said, it's a success. Lei Tie's eyes also flashed a smile and he continued to press. Qin Mian took a pair of scissors to cut the noodles and smilingly said, let's have noodles for lunch. Lei Tie naturally had no objection and then made a second noodle maker. After lunch, the 2 went to the grain sunning ground to call Xiao Hu over and took the noodle maker and dough to town. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 26. Made money. Because of his good mood, Qin Mian didn't feel that it was a long way to town. On the way, they came across a donkey cart going to town, so they hitchhiked on it. When they arrived in the town, Qin Mian took Lei Tie to a tea house and asked for 2 cups of herbal tea. Lei Tie saw that he seemed to have a plan and became almost as silent as a post. He just followed and wondered what his little wife would do. Waiter, check out. Qin Mian only took a sip. The waiter wiped his hands and came over. Thank you for your patronage. It's 2 wen in all. Qin Mian paid the money for the tea and handed over 3 more coins. Waiter, I want to know something. Lei Tie then understood why his wife went to the tea house when they had brought their own water. His dark and deep eyes fluctuated slightly and then returned to calm. The waiter took the money and was happy, ask away. I'm not bragging, but there's really nothing in this town that I don't know about. Qin Mian carried off with a laugh, we want to customize some furniture, do you know which shop has the best woodcraft work in this town? Hey, you are asking the right person. Yao's woodcraft shop is the best one in doing carpentry work. In the town, the rich people with some money basically make furniture in their shop. Qin Mian showed a look of embarrassment, the Yao's I didn't have a pleasant time with the shop assistant in their shop a few days ago. Aside from the Yao's. Without thinking, the waiter replied, the rich and honor woodcraft shop. Their shop is no worse than Yao's only because they rise later than the Yao's and has a little less reputation. The competition between the 2 is fierce. Qin Mian had been waiting for this sentence and he nodded with satisfaction, Thank you very much. After asking the address of the Rich and Honor Woodcraft shop, he left with Lei Tie to find it. The building of the Rich and Honor Woodcraft shop was not small. There were exquisite wardrobes, carved beds, round tables, mahogany chairs, and other things at the door, which made the shop easy to find. As soon as they entered the shop, a young shop assistant straightened his Baotou hat as he greeted them with a smile on his face. What do the two honored customers want to buy? Qin Mian said, where is the shopkeeper? I have something to sell to the shopkeeper. As soon as the shop assistant heard this, he looked at him up and down again. The enthusiasm on his face immediately faded away. The right corner of his mouth rose disdainfully as he waved them away. Go, go, go. You look this shabby and yet still want to sell things in the woodcraft shop. Hurry and go. Lei Tie frowned. Qin Mian however didn't take offense. He shook his head and said with a light smile, I finally understand why your Rich and Honor Woodcraft shops is not as good as that of Yao's Woodcraft shop. What did you say? The shop assistant stared at him with a particularly bad expression. Boy, are you tired of living? Go, go, go. Wait. The blue curtain behind the counter was opened by one hand and a somewhat stout middle-aged man came out. Manager Liao. The shop assistant's expression became respectful. Liao's Hifu ignored him and raised his eyelids to size up Qin Mian. He had an air of arrogance and a foxy smile. I'd like to ask this brother what you said just now. The employer left the woodcraft shop to him to manage and he thought he was doing his best, but today, being criticized by an ignorant youth caused him to be angry. Is it? Qin Mian was fearless and pointed to the direction of the assistant. I'm not a customer of your shop today, which doesn't mean I'm not a customer of your shop tomorrow. It's no wonder that the first thing people think about when they mention woodcraft shop is the Yao's. Be done with it, I don't want to talk to you much if my words are regarded as ill-mannered. Farewell. This brother's extraordinary speech and calm demeanor made Liao's Hifu care a little, his heart jolted and exclaimed, wait. Qin Mian stopped and faintly smiled before he turned around. You just said you wanted to sell something. Liao's Hifu's eyes drifted to Lei Tie's basket on his back. Anyway, he had nothing to do, so he regarded it as killing time. Qin Mian nodded, that's right. It's a blueprint of a manual noodle maker. Manual noodle maker. Liao's Hifu was at a loss. Qin Mian explained, it's a tool for making noodles. He smiled without saying a word and motioned to Lei Tie to take out the noodle maker, dough, and wooden basin. He demonstrated it directly. Seeing the long and thin noodles appeared from the bottom of the noodle maker, Liao's Hifu's eyes were wide open in surprise. He was excited yet remained calm and collected as he said, it's barely considered as a good thing. What is the price of the blueprint? The assistant stared straight at the noodle maker with a weird expression all over his face. Qin Mian said, we plan to sell this to just one shop. 50 tael, fixed price. Oh. Liao's Hifu uttered a sound with a undiscernible smile, shook his head and said contemptuously, I don't think this brother really understands how much 50 tael is worth. You should know that a silver tael is enough to feed an average family of 4 for a year. 50 silver tael is too high. Manager Liao's words are incorrect. Qin Mian said calmly, how many noodle shops are there in the town, Manager Liao? Don't they need a lot of noodles every day? How many rich people are there in the town? They won't mind spending a little money on a noodle maker, do they? With the blueprint, you can produce a batch of manual noodle maker. Even if you sell one for a silver tael, you can earn at least 200 tael in the town. What about in the whole county? What about in the whole state? 50 tael is absolutely not high. Liao's Hifu was somewhat interested, but most businessmen were crafty by nature. He wanted to reduce the price down without resorting to fraud. This brother has a point. But this doesn't seem to be so complicated to make, so I'm afraid it's easy to imitate. Manager Liao is wrong yet again. Qin Mian still had something to say. Tables, chairs, cabinets, and cupboards are more easily imitated, but why do some woodcraft shops become famous, while others are unknown? What's more, if you have the blueprint, you can seize the market first. Even if someone imitates it, they will lose on the initiative front. Liao Zhifu stroked his beard and remained silent. Qin Mian waited for a while deliberately, but Liao Zhifu still kept silent. He stood up without any anxiety on his face and smiled lightly. It's already late, we still have to go to Yao's woodcraft shop. Wait. Liao Zhifu panicked. I'll buy it. Yao's woodcraft shop was more famous than them. If he could get the blueprint of the manual noodle maker, wouldn't his shop one-up them? Qin Mian quietly gave a proud smile toward Lei Tie. Lei Tie stroked his head. Liao Zhifu added, but we have to write a guarantee document. We have to ensure that you won't sell the blueprint of the noodle maker or the noodle maker itself to another, or you will have to compensate us with 1,000 tael of silver. As it should be. Qin Mian nodded, however, we are not the only wise people in the world. Since we can make a noodle maker, it doesn't mean other people can't do it as well, so another type of second noodle maker might come up. Manager Liao can't blame that on us. If Manager Liao can produce a large batch first and sell them all over the country at the same time, it would be good. Liao Zhifu frowned and also understood that this was the truth. After thinking about it, he nodded, all right. He wrote down 2 documents on the spot and then he and Lei Tie pressed their thumbprints. Qin Mian accepted 5 silver ingots weighing 10 liang. He took out the blueprint and explained them to Liao Zhifu in detail before he disassembled the noodle maker apart to show it. Liao Zhifu patted his thigh and put on a long face, this simple? We lost money, lost money. Qin Mian smiled and shook his head. Manager Liao, This brother doesn't need to say these words are wrong again. Liao Zhifu was really annoyed. Qin Mian didn't take offense. If it's as simple as you said, why hasn't anyone done it before? End chapter.